Oh, the way you
Yokohama.
price, yeah.
Sure you have your mics on too.
Turn her on.
Yes, I am.
Right. Let's do this. Will we know if somebody's on Zoom or?
Yes,
My name's Steve. Yeah. Paula. Steve Lee. I'll call the meeting to order. Richard, do you have the roll call? Okay, we do have 3 resolutions here that we're going to be discussing, but I think we're going to make some changes.
Well, I suggest that we table the electrical rate increase. We're just barely coming off the top of the season for electrical usage. And I don't think anybody's gonna want to raise it this time of year. Or they won't vote for it anyway, so.
I agree. Do I have a second?
A second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to pull the resolution regarding an electric rate increase. We'll table it for now. All in favor? Opposed? Let the record show it's approved. The motion was approved 4-2. So we will just be dealing with the sewer and the water rate increases at this time. All right, anybody have a comment? And although it says down here, the public comment is below, seems to be below that. Yes,
Can you clarify the vote again? We didn't catch all the names of no and the nays.
I think the no's were Chris and Brian. The rest of them were yes.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So we will allow public comment on the water and the sewer rate increases before we vote on them, on these resolutions, even though it looks like the public comment is below, it's not really. So Roger, if you're here to comment, or Bill, anybody?
No? How about on Zoom? Nope.
Ooh, I don't think that's on.
Roger Strauss,
Oh.
114 912th Street, Southeast,
On.
abandoned. So I would just have questioned what you just did, because you didn't ask for public comment on that. Because I think constantly going back and forth to the voters. So you do 2 now, and then in September, you decide, well, we really need but let me start again. We know we all need, all the rate increases are needed. According to the information that the city manager provided. It's clear that all 3 are needed. So my question would be, if you take one off the table and you vote to approve the other 2, then you've got to go back again, go through the expense of another election and figure, well, this is a better time than the last time to go for the electric rate increase. All you've done is just pushed it down the road. It's not like you don't need it. You just pushed
Right.
it down the road. I understand that this is the season and it's been fairly cold here.
It's gonna
A
get
lot of,
worse.
and it's gonna get colder. I mean, I was out walking this morning. I know how cold it was. But I just question the idea of pushing this down the road. I know you just voted on it, so that's okay,
Okay,
but you didn't take comment before you voted on it.
all right.
You're just pushing it down the road. You got to do something about it. And so if you're going to go through the expense and the effort to go to the public to ask for rate increases, I think you should ask for them all at once. It's unlikely, in my opinion, that a person's going to vote for one and not for the other. They're either in favor of rate increases or against rate increases, in my opinion. So, well, I'm just giving you my opinion.
Your opinion.
And so if you count the votes at the end, you'll probably see that most people either voted for all three or two and voted the same number voted the other way. There, you will see a significant, I doubt if you would see a 5% difference between the two, because to me, it's a matter of principle. Let me know when my time runs out. To me, it's a matter of principle. You're either in favor of doing it or you're against doing it. And there aren't going to be a lot of people that say, well, it's okay to raise the sewer rates, but not the water rates. I mean, I might because I don't have sewer.
Okay, Raj, I have one opinion here, one concern. The sewer and the water rates are specific, so you will know exactly. A person on a fixed income is going to know exactly how much it's going to cost them. But there's a kilowatt hour increase charge in the electric, and it's going to be harder to figure out. And so I think we're going to have to really do some explanations for people. And at a time when the bills are always at least a month to 2 months behind when you get your bill. And the worst thing that we could do with the electric rate increase would be to have your highest bill of the year come into your mailbox right before this election. That's the way I think. I mean, because electric bills particularly they can soar and then in the summer they go way down. So
Well,
that's our thinking, but.
Okay, so just two quick questions. I'm sorry, go ahead.
You need to come up with something better because everybody's paying higher gas, higher groceries, higher everything. I don't see when you're gonna have, I mean, do I want to pay higher? No, I don't want to pay higher. Do I want to see everything go down the toilet? Don't want to see that either, but it's like he was saying, I mean, I'm not gonna sit there and go, yeah, well, forget the water and the sewer, I'll just do the electric. I mean, it's either gonna be all or not. And I don't know how you try to sell this at a different time.
Let me just comment on what you just said,
All
Madam
right,
Mayor. First of all, I don't think this goes into effect on April 1st, right? I mean, if you vote on it on March 20, whatever, I don't know that it's going to go
Now it's
into
not till
effect
May.
to May. Okay, so you're not talking about the electric bills until May. I understand your point. There's a lot of history here that people have. So you can say if you have historically, an assumption made by myself is that we have history on customers of how much electricity they've used in the past. So we could say, if in the past you've used this many hours, this is what your new bill will be. If in the past, if you used it this many hours, this is what your new bill would be. Most people, I would think, probably don't vary that much year to year. What varies is the outside environment. And so I don't see that much. I understand your point. That's accepted, but you could certainly take an example of a person and say, if historically, look at your electric bills. If historically your electric bill has been 1,100 kilowatt hours, I just made that number up. I don't know what it is. Then your increase would be from here to here. Okay. I mean, it's clear and the numbers are what the numbers are. So I don't think, well, I understand your point about the variability and the fact that it's not clear a dollar amount. I think it could be made clear in a range what your bill would be. And I agree with Councilor Powell that well, he agreed with me, I guess, is that most people are just going to be either yay or nay on this. And we already know that that's the case. And the question is, can you as a council persuade whatever it is, 850 or 820 or whatever the number is, people to vote in favor of it? I mean, I think that's around the number of it, around 1,600 registered voters in town. So anyway, so that's just my,
I want to ask Dan a question. Were we planning to put all three of these on one ballot? I mean, they'd be all
Three
three
different
lumped
measures?
together, or would they be three?
No, there would be three separate measures. They have to be
Okay,
voted on individually.
okay.
and that's how the city manager presented it, as three separate ballot measures
Right.
in the same election.
Right.
Right.
So you just voted to push one off to the side.
Well, we had discussed it with the city manager was
Well,
not.
but you just voted on it.
Yeah,
I'm not saying you didn't discuss it beforehand. I'm just saying you just voted on it, and I think I don't think that's the best solution, because in November, if that's when the next election time is, you're gonna have to ask for the electric rate increase. Even if these two fail, you still need to figure out what you're gonna do about the electric system. Because it's not any better off, if not worse off than the other two. So that's just my opinion. Does anyone else have any questions?
I would rather be sitting knowing where we're at instead of sitting there going, oh gee, the sewer and the water failed, but maybe the electric would have passed. I mean, I want to know where we're at, not sitting there thinking, well, in September they'll probably come around. I don't know. I don't really know whether this is going to work or not.
Oh, I know we.
I agree with Chris. I think, there's sooner or later, we got to bite the bullet. There's we're reaching a point where we can't subsidize all of our utilities anymore. We can't do it. And if it comes to it, we may have to sell the damn utilities.
Okay, well, because biting the bullet and getting it passed may be two different things.
Well,
That's-
we've
that's
got
my
to, like
concern.
Chris says, we have to find out where we're at. And I've been insisting all along that in addition to agreeing to raise the rates or we need to have campaign, we need to have some solid facts behind the reason why this needs to be done. We were just too responsible in the old days because our property taxes were ridiculous. They still are.
Still are.
And we always were trying to save the consumers money, but let's face it, like Chris said, everything's going up. You just were complaining about groceries. We've got to do something, and the people have to realize that we're at a point where we cannot afford to subsidize the utilities anymore. I tell people we have $30 million worth of infrastructure improvements, and we have no money to do them. What are we gonna do? We can't keep building, we can't allow hotels, motels. What's gonna happen? We're gonna have to have a moratorium on everything? And maybe that's what some people want. I hope not, but that's maybe, because, that's,
There are quite a few that do.
Yeah, I wouldn't put that out as
Yeah.
an option. You gotta.
well, I know, but the
voters.
bottom line is, we have to do these improvements if we're gonna continue to grow.
That's true.
Dan,
No, we didn't talk about we didn't talk about it at all. Our rates would still be lower than anyone else
Yes.
in the state, even after this increase. As a percentage, it would be about 15% in the kilowatt hour rate, along with an increase in the base rates of a few bucks. $10 out of town and basically $3 in town in the base rate, in the base rates. And then those increases flow through, unlike what we've done with water and sewer, those increases flow through all of the categories.
mhm.
So it is a cleaner way to do it than trying to load, we tend to load stuff in the base rate because it's understandable. $4, okay, $4. Actually, the plan that was kind of in mind was that we would come back. In fact, this went through an iteration where we were going to propose a graduated or a tiered system of water rates, like a lot of places have. There are people that use 100,000 gallons of water in the summer
To irrigate. It
Yeah,
doesn't go into the.
for $100,
Yeah,
$150. And they're using 20 times or 50 times more water than the average resident for just $100 more a month. So we thought we could come back with that, but we wanted the security of the base rate increase for purposes of budgeting and going forward. And because you're right, it's easier to explain, right? We're always in this situation where if the council had rate setting authority, we would come in with a comprehensive set of here's what the rate should be, here's the justification for
Right.
them across the various categories, large demand, small demand, yard lights, street lights, commercial, industrial, in town, out of town. You would do all of this. But it becomes hard to explain in a ballot measure. The only point I wanted to make about electric utility rates is that this would be lower, would still be lower than anybody else, including our two neighboring utilities, Bocuse Curry and Pacific Power. Even after this increase. So there's a case to be made, certainly.
Okay, that's true, but the problem is, last time we did this, we got a lot of pushback on people sitting there saying, I don't live in Coquille, I don't live in Myrtle Point, I live here,
Right.
and that's why I live here. So I mean, just sitting there and saying, hey, it's, you're still under, it's like, I don't know how much that holds.
Right.
So that's,
I don't even use that anymore when I talk to people. Cause it makes, I mean, they could care less. They
Yeah.
live in Bandon. They don't live over there.
Well, except that their Coos Curry Electric customers are right outside here and Pacific Power are right outside. So they're essentially our neighbors and they have abandoned address. So I think those figures are extremely important to see what others are paying myself.
Well, it goes to the argument, are we efficient? Are we effective? Are we squandering money? Are we, I don't know what
Right.
we'd be doing, buying Jim, fancy new clothes or,
Jim,
Yeah,
did you
those
get a
kinds
new
of things.
truck I didn't know about?
no.
I know, I've
No.
seen it.
So now after we've had all this discussion,
Well, I'm gonna make a motion to rescind the vote to table the electrical for right now. Anybody gonna second it?
I'll second it.
because it has to be a member of the prevailing, right?
Right.
Make the motion and, okay, all right. Say the motion has been made to rescind the earlier vote. Was there a second?
I second it.
Jerry seconded it. So now do we want further discussion?
The Paula that's up on Zoom, is that Paula that works for the city? I would like to know sometime in the near future. I call it the level pay plan. I don't know what the proper
Yeah.
title for the city is. But I'd like to know how many accounts are on that program.
For electric.
Yes,
What kind of program?
Level,
level.
where you
plan.
pay the same every month.
Oh, yeah.
They basically look at your rates for a year and they calculate how much you'll need to pay every month. So for budgeting, you pay the same amount every
Right.
month.
My
And at
sister
the end
does
of your
that.
12
Get a bill
months,
for
they
more.
reevaluate your account.
Oh, good. Good
I'd
question.
like to
people-
know, because I know that I've talked to several people about it in the city and they know nothing about it.
I didn't.
That's
know either.
definitely an option and it's a good one for
It's a
people
very good one.
who have big
I'm on it.
swings. Yeah.
On it
How'd you
because I
find out
just,
about it?
Huh?
How'd you find out?
I had
about
it in Huntington Beach.
Oh.
So does anyone,
Did Paula answer you?
Well, I don't think she's not gonna know that now, but.
No, she would have to look it up.
We'll get it out then to all the council members in an email.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, that would be
Okay.
great.
Vote on the motion. Do we need?
shall we vote on the motion? All those in favor of rescinding the earlier motion, which would mean that the electric rate increase would be on the same ballot with the water and sewer, please signify by raising your hand. Unanimous. Thank you. Thank you. Now we'll talk about the resolutions themselves. Does anyone else have anything that they want to say?
Public
That
comment.
the water and sewer are pretty clear.
On the electrical,
Yes.
we're in reserves. Do you have a projection if we don't get this thing passed, how long those reserves are gonna last?
We don't because it depends on, for example, and it depends, it varies wildly
Okay,
based on winter weather.
Yeah.
A cold winter, costs are most of our costs are fixed,
Fixed, right?
right? So a cold winter bumps revenue up. What we do know is that costs are going through the roof on everything. Coos Curry and Pacific Power, for example, we compete with them for linemen. We're all competing in the same
I
market for
know you
parts
do.
and transformers and those kinds of things. So no, but we've been dipping into it.
see, that's what I like about Paula, she's right
Thank you,
there.
Paula.
Thank you, Paula. So there's only, did she say 82?
82.
82.
That's a low number. So,
We're gonna have a colder, according to the weather forecasters, a
Everybody's.
colder spring.
yeah,
And
Oh, great.
perhaps-
That'll just make it all the higher.
Well, I'm
bills.
just saying, and perhaps,
Too bad you didn't say that before.
well,
I'm just kidding you.
may I finish?
I wish.
In a wetter spring, we are fortunate to have had as much rain as we've had because we've averted that water crisis that we were thinking we could have.
Yeah.
And I think it portends to a much wetter, better water year in general. Regardless, the bills are gonna go up. They've got to go up. We can't, again, keep subsidizing the utilities. It's just something that has to happen. And like Chris said, we'll find out where we're at. And we're gonna have to put our heads together and come up with something that's gonna work, because it has to work.
And what would happen if they said no, but we still raised the price?
we
What would
can.
they,
You remember?
No,
when we-
no,
Remember what happened? We
Slapped us in the
raised
face.
Marty Stone's courtroom?
Yeah, he slapped us in the
Yeah,
face.
maybe we ought to, you know. You know, when I moved here in 95 officially, we missed the ballot about taking it off. And a lot of people in town don't know about that. Is there any way to let people know, hey, we used to take care of all of this. There was no problem. So what's the problem now, except somebody got mad at the city and decides to do something? I think people ought to start hearing about that and find out why we actually have to go through all this.
And how few
20
people in the
years,
country.
And how
Yeah.
people,
how
I
few
think
have-
I think we're missing the boat on, it. I talked to somebody last night. He had no idea what was going on. I
Might
said,
be
well,
a good
pass the word.
item for your newsletter.
People ought to know why we're in this predicament. That's my opinion.
I think it also works to our advantage that there's a lot of, boy, I took a drive down Beach Loop the other day. I couldn't believe the.
Yes, I know.
There's gonna be a lot of new people in town that, you know, they're coming from places where they were paying
Yeah.
9, 10, 11 cents a kilowatt.
Yeah,
And we're still, what, at 6 something?
but half of them don't vote because
Thank you.
Yes.
Exactly what I was gonna
they're
say.
still.
They vote somewhere
their
else where they
residents,
live.
Their official program, official gig.
Well, anyway, is there anybody else that has anything to weigh in on these? I guess we're going to
Oh,
go.
it's a sore subject, I tell you.
So should we,
I've been trying so hard for so many years.
Well, they should have sued him.
And I just,
I
we
don't know,
gotta, like Brian said, we gotta come up with something.
I'm hoping the
we've gotta
chamber
get
maybe
this
would help
passed.
us, or I don't know.
We've gotta get this passed. We really do. Because I mean,
Maybe we can have. them
I'm
go-
not happy we're in the reserves for electrical. I know that. That won't last long.
So I think,
So shall we vote each of,
yeah, well, I think that the motion to the motion to rescind the earlier motion has not been voted on yet.
yes,
we
yes.
voted.
it was
Oh,
unanimous.
You're right, it has. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I got caught up in the excitement.
I know.
So the council could just take them in order.
Yeah, let's do the three. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve, which one am I doing? 2304.
Been moved by Madeline, seconded by Josh to approve. Oh, Jeff, so
Sue
you
him.
guys sound alike, sorry. To approve resolution 23-04. All in favor? Unanimous. Okay, a motion
Motion to approve resolution 23-05.
Second.
moved by Madeline, seconded by Josh. All in favor? Unanimous.
Motion to approve resolution 23-06.
Second.
That was Jeff.
Moved by Madeline, seconded by Jeff.
You guys are just trying to confuse her, aren't
They
you?
do sound alike. All in favor? Unanimous. Right now, we have a housing update.
Just a couple quick things. I put that on the agenda just in case. On the property we're jointly working on with the school district, the zone change got kicked over for a month, but that isn't really slowing anything down. We're continuing to talk to developer builder folk. We have 2 very skilled consultants who are about to sign a contract with to just help us not make mistakes as we go forward. We have talked to the folks who did a very interesting deal for a resort community they weren't able to name, but I detectived my way into figuring out that it was Sun Valley Ketchum, where they did a really interesting project that sort of met all of these community needs, right? There were community investors that were interested. There were developers, there were public entities, and there were employers. And they figured out a way to have a nonprofit run the project, so there would be no real estate development risk or landlord tenant risk for the public bodies, and yet they would still have a renter nomination preference. And we also figured out, it took us a minute, and I'm embarrassed that it took so long to realize we do have to spin that off, because if public entities continue to own it, we would have prevailing wage issues in building the homes. So it's going to have to be spun off in some fashion. Then we've got to figure out how we creatively still meet this desire to have, you know, in return for the school district's donation, the city's donation of the property, have some renter selection or renter preference without violating the fair housing laws. But that's moving forward. well. We're having geotech work done. The plan is still to we want to try to find a way to break ground in the fall.
Okay.
On the opportunity site, the 17 acres south of town, the Kaiser family bought. We've hired another wetlands consultant to take a second look at the wetlands there on the property because it is really gorse choked and you don't generally see gorse in wetlands. And we've got the Kaisers have hired them. And then another consultant to deal with the Division of State Lands. We really got to figure out there what we have, how much developable land we have. There's all kinds of ideas and all kinds of people that are interested in coming to Bandon to build property or to build housing, but we got to know there how much land we have.
Oh, yeah.
Also, on the housing front, related to this conversation, I don't know that it's well known in the community. But we did have a large housing development proposed, both inside the city and then another piece to be annexed. We really had no choice but to tell, it was really hundreds of homes. We really had no choice but to tell them that in terms of annexation, we couldn't guarantee that the city would be able to approve that, given where we are with the water situation. So I guess the word on the street was, well, they're blaming it on the city, well, we tell the truth when we can, and we couldn't provide them with water. So the economic impacts of this,
Right.
they're real, and it's not just housing or large housing developments, but there are other projects in Bandon that are, and I know I'm speaking to the
Choir.
preaching to the choir. The words aren't coming today. Preaching to the choir here, but to the folks that are listening to this,
Right.
there are real economic family wage jobs, development impacts to businesses as a result of not being able to solve that problem with the charter. So that's the housing update.
Right.
Well, and I think your newsletter, I know some of us throw it away, Chris, but
Maybe
I
you can put
read
it in front of the
version.
bill.
but I think we need to keep explaining that to people that, you have a whole page or page, 2 pages. And I think we really need to get across what that charter amendment has cost the city and will continue to cost the city. Because we know it and, we have our faithfuls here who know it, but the broader, they don't know it. And it's just so important that
Being as there's such a lack of print media, and
Non-existent.
non-existent.
well, yeah, and TV and radio is so darned expensive. I'm thinking maybe we need to have some much better web presence, or even maybe have our own website to deal with the election. I'd certainly would be willing to contribute $500 to $1,000 personally, which is probably more than I pay for utilities every year to get this thing passed. And I keep getting emails from all these different outfits. If you want to communicate better, we can do this and we can do that. Maybe that's something we need to look into.
Of what it takes. I mean, even we're talking a mailer, yeah, we could all contribute to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
The city has its own website and Facebook page, and it wouldn't cost anything to really kind of spin off of that to do some sort of service announcement. No?
We can't use once these measures are going on the ballot,
We can't do it.
we can't use public
We'd
resources.
we'd have to set up a pack.
Use Facebook?
Yeah, we'd have to set up a pack.
There you go.
Mhm.
Well, come up here and threaten us up here. I don't know what you're saying.
I'm saying adjourn the meeting. You're done with your business.
He said adjourn the meeting. Is that what you said?
I said adjourn the meeting.
That's what I said. He said adjourn the meeting, then we could talk
I
about it.
respectfully disagree. We're having a public discussion here about issues the public's entitled to hear, and should not continue to have the discussion outside of a public meeting with a quorum in the room.
I agree.
Yes.
Yeah, unless we just all leave. But I mean, these are the kind of questions that I think we need to talk about.
Well, I
And
just,
then the public can hear it.
What does Roger have? What's your problem, Roger?
Well, I came here to talk about that exact issue. And I'm not sure it needs to be on the record.
Oh, as to what we would, okay, I get what you're saying, but
But as long as there's a quorum here,
yeah,
so
we,
they'd have to leave.
The
And-
issue, and I'll get a legal opinion here.
You're getting my opinion as a city manager right now, that as long as there is, it's how it's gonna go, Roger. As long as there's a quorum of folks in the room discussing a public issue, we will be on the record.
Yeah.
Any discussion you'd like to have with less than a quorum or a non-city business in another location, you can continue to have it, but I don't think it has anything to do with adjourning this meeting right now.
Thank you. And the city attorney agreed with you.
Yeah.
She's nodding her.
She's nodding.
She's nodding
She's-
her head. She's
On
nodding.
another
Depends,
note,
sometimes she shakes it.
I went to Eugene, I did a Eugene turnaround like a week ago or something, and I told Mary about it. In Reedsport, I was hoping it was a city partnered thing, because they're building 6 buildings of apartments. But it's a private developer. But it's pretty exciting to see it going up. It's behind that tire store off of 101. And I thought, wow, that is so great.
That's Rob Crocker. We've met with him several times.
Oh,
Really?
He's very interested in Bandon, but we've got to get the land together.
Okay.
So you're, okay. All right. Does anybody else have? Yes.
I want to go back to the dunes property you're talking about with the swamp on there.
Yeah.
How much are we actually looking at? I mean, wasn't there something, if you fill that in, you got to create something somewhere else?
Yeah, we're looking at how there's about of 17 acres, 17 or 18 acres, there's about 10 and a half that the first report said are wetland.
Really?
Oh,
And the way it's laid out, it makes it tough to develop the property because it's not a nice, rectangle.
Right.
So we're getting a second opinion on that because there are wetlands consultants that would find a wetland if you spilled water on this
Exactly.
table.
Yes.
So we're getting a second opinion from a local on that. Once we get that, then you walk through the second step of the process, which is to figure out how you can mitigate, where you can fill, where you can enhance, to figure out what we've got. The first wetlands consultants essentially went dark on us last summer, so we are 4 or 5 months behind where we planned on being now, but I just met with Marie Simons this morning and the train's moving down the track again.
I don't know, it just seems ridiculous at times.
I know.
We got a swamp that's holding up progress. I mean, you call it a wetland, church it up if you want, but it's a swamp. I mean, that's what it is.
yeah.
Anybody else have any other questions or comments?
Minus alligators.
Lots of people live in the swamps. Maybe.
Exactly. Yeah.
Why not? Maybe we could start a whole new thing. Come to swampland, Bandon, Oregon.
House on stilts.
There you go.
There we go.
Okay.
Still have people doing that in the boonies.
Yeah,
All right, we're gonna,
journey. Turned.
interesting, say the least. Thanks,
Okay.
guys. Oh, okay. All right.
I gotta see Dan.
Tell Peter I need him to open up his business again.